Welcome back to another video, and in this video we're going to be continuing on with our series on iOS development with UIKit. My apologies there. In this video, we are going to be taking a look at how we can create multiple sections in a UI collection view the traditional way before we had diffable data sources, similar to what we did with table views. Alright, so to start with, let's go into Xcode, and when I run the code, this is what it looks like. It's just a bunch of color swatches with their names underneath them in every cell. There's no visual divide between sections or anything like that. This is the exact state that it was in at the beginning of last video. Alright, now I should mention that if you have not learned collection views yet, go to that video. I have an entire video on how to create a UI collection view, and then how to create custom cells and all of that. So, what we're going to do here is we're going to separate our colors between colors that support light and dark mode, so they adapt, and static colors, colors that do not change from light to dark mode. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started. Inside of Xcode, the first thing that we need to change is we need to change the value we are returning in our number of sections method. So we'll go up here, and instead of returning 1, we return 2. Because we want 2 sections. If you have more than 2 sections that you need, you can return however many sections you need here. We're just going to return 2 because we only need 2. Alright, next, we need to change our initializer, and we need to add in a couple more things. So above our init method, I'm going to add in two arrays, one that will hold our static colors and the other that will hold our dynamic colors. So private var static colors, and we'll make this a color array. Next, we'll have a private var dynamic colors. This will also be a color array. And there are our 2 new arrays that we're going to use to store the data for each section. Alright, now inside of our initializer, we'll say self dot, we'll say dynamic colors, dynamic colors is going to be equal to colors dot filter $0.type is equal to dynamic. And then we'll say self.static colors equals colors.filter $0.type is equal to not dynamic. Now, if you are unfamiliar with how filter works, go watch my video on higher order functions in my Swift series, and then come back here so you understand what it is that we're doing here, because you should know how to use filter already. I'm not going to go like super in depth into every single little piece of the code, just what's relevant. So now that we have our two sections here, right, we have our two arrays initialized for our with our specific data for each section, we can modify our cell for item at method to adapt for what we need. Now the guard statement can remain the guard statement can stay the same. We don't need to change anything about it. However, where we call the set method, that does need to change. All right, so I'm going to get rid of that line, and then we're going to replace it with a switch statement. Now, this switch statement is going to be used to determine the index of our section. So the way this is going to work is we are going to place our dynamic colors in the first section, so index 0, and then our static colors in the second section, so index 1. Now, how exactly do we achieve this? Well, we need to say switch index path dot section. Now, whatever the section of our index path is, if it's 0, we will set and we will pass it our dynamic colors at index path dot item. Let's see. Okay, there's a problem there. So index path dot item, like that. All right. So next, we'll say case 1 cell.set, and then in here we'll say we want static colors at index path dot item, like that. Now we do need a default case to make our switch exhaustive. So we'll say default. If we don't know what it is, we'll just return a UICollectionView cell. Just like that. Because we have to return something. Unlike our diffable data source, we can't just return nil. We have to return something. So if it's an unknown case, if it's a default case, we'll just return a blank collection view cell. And it's not a huge deal. All right, so that's done. Let's go ahead and run our code now. We have a successful build. Here's all of our colors here. Okay. Actually, we have a crash. So let's take a look at what happened. Index out of range, it says. Okay. So we have a problem there then. Maybe instead of item, we'll use row. Let's try that. Let's try row. Like that. And we will run this. All right, we have a successful build. There we go. Okay, we still have an index out of range error here. So let's see here. Let's double check what we're doing. Okay. So for item at index path, okay. So, I think I know what's happening here. We did not modify our number of items in section method. That's what we didn't do. Right. So what we'll do, we'll change row back to item. Say item like that. All right, yep. So instead of return colors count, what we'll do is we'll do another switch statement to determine the section. So switch section. And then in here, we'll have case 0. So if our section is our dynamic colors section, we'll say dynamic colors.count case 1. So if it's our static colors section, we will return static colors.count. For a default case, we will return 0, like that. Now let's run our code. And we got a build failure. Okay. Okay, so I'll just return 0 like that, just to satisfy it. And we'll save this, run it. And here we go. So here's all of our colors now. Okay, so it appears that our dynamic colors are not being displayed. So let's go ahead and go through this and see what we may have done wrong. So import UIKit. We create our data source. We have our private var colors. we have our static and dynamic colors arrays. We're passing in our colors to our initializer. We're initializing our colors array, making sure that our dynamic and static colors arrays are initialized. So number of sections, we are in fact returning 2 sections. So here, number of items in section. So if our section is 0, we return dynamic colors.count. For case 1, we are returning our static colors.count. Let's print something here just to make sure that we are reaching this case. So print case reached. Now for the default case, we are returning 0. And outside of the switch statement, we are returning 0. However, we do have a warning. So let's take a look at what this warning is. Well, okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna get rid of that print statement. Case 0, colon, now it says we need to say return dynamic colors count. Now let's save our code. And there we go. Right. So now we have both sections. Our dynamic colors are first. And then we've got all of the secondary, or in the second section, we've got all of the static colors. Now you can see, as was demonstrated in the video, using non-diffable data sources, like I mentioned in the video when we covered UICollectionViewDiffableDataSource, it is very error prone. And today we've demonstrated that pretty well. We got a warning where we forgot to return, and that was not intended to happen. And then we also had a couple errors where our app was crashing because we did not appropriately account for the sections and number of items in section method. But once we fixed them, everything is working as intended. So that pretty much does it for this video, guys, on how we can create a UI collection view using UICollectionViewDataSource the traditional way, pre-iOS 13. Thank you all so very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.